This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. Thank you for hitting that play button or downloading. This is episode 38 of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. It's officially the best podcast called DreamPod. I'll stand by that. I'll put my life on the line.
It's true.
Endorse that. My name is Tom, and I am joined by a man whose voice is so silky it could create a resonance cascade on its own. If he worked at Black Mesa, it's the Bristolian Lothario. It's Mike Phelan.
Hello, Tom. That was an interesting introduction.
You don't actually work at Black Mesa, do you?
I couldn't possibly say, Tom.
The reason I ask is because I've been playing a lot of Half-Life recently, so I've got it on the brain. Mike, we do have a special guest all the way from the land of YouTube. He's a joker, a smoker, and a midnight toker, apparently. His name is Max. He's also known as DreamcastGuy. Hello, Max.
Hello. Very awesome to be here. Big fan.
Thank you. Likewise, I am one of your 40,000 subscribers, so I'm quite familiar with your work. I'm sure after this podcast, some more people will be tuning into your channel as well. We will come to you shortly, Max, and talk a little bit all about you, basically, and your channel and YouTube in general. But as we always do, first things first, on the podcast, I'm going to ask Mike if you've actually you played anything or picked anything up for the Dreamcast or for the PS4 or any other console that you own in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I've bought a couple of things this week. I've bought Formula 1 2016 on the Xbox One, which is a great game. I love Formula 1 games, and this one's fantastic. I also have purchased a 2DS.
Okay, that's the one that looks like a slice of bread. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, yeah, it's an odd one. I had a 3DS. I never really got on with it. I fancied playing some Mario games. No, don't shoot me. Yeah, it was cheap. To be honest with you, the only reason I bought it was cheap.
Did you not get on with it because it was the 3D or what?
I couldn't get on with the 3D at all. But I didn't like my hands are very big.
Okay.
And I could never get on with the 3DS. I had the original one. I had the XL, the original XL. Neither of them really suited me. But there's a couple of games that I've sort of been wanting to go back to and new ones to play. So, picked it up.
I've never actually played on a 3DS. Oh, wait, I played on one once. But if I do buy another console in the next couple of weeks or months, it's probably going to be a 3DS because I've been eyeing them up online to see how they're actually quite cheap now. So I'm looking at maybe purchasing one of those in the near future.
There's a lot of games on it. I think there's a lot of shovelware, but there's some good titles. I think as with all Nintendo consoles, the Nintendo first party titles are a fair bet to be games.
Yeah, good games, yeah. Max, sorry, you had something to say there?
Yeah, the 3DS has a lot of great stuff, a lot of RPGs. That's kind of what's blown me away is I've had a 3DS, and I just love the idea of, because I ride the train everywhere, so it's great to just be able to sit down and, grind on RPGs is great.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by the 3D effect as well. I really need to get one. Anyway, Mike, is that everything you've been playing? Have you been playing anything on the Dreamcast as well?
I've been playing a little bit on Dreamcast, mainly in preparation for today's podcast. Been playing a few little classics from the past and a couple of indie titles. I've getting prepared for the next batch of indie titles to come out, which I think we've got one coming out next month. So we've been playing through some of the other ones. There's a surprisingly large amount of quality. I think a lot of people just remember the shmups for the Dreamcast. But I've been playing all the indie games that aren't shmups. And it's been good.
Can you name check some of them?
I can indeed. So I've been playing Alice Mum's Rescue. I've been playing, which is a great game. My other half is a massive Alice in Wonderland fan and collector. So anything even remotely Alice in Wonderland related, I have to get anyway. It's a good game. I've been playing PS Solar, which I haven't really played much of yet. So that's That was good. And Rush Rally Racing.
Excellent. Yeah, I picked up Rush Rally Racing recently myself. It's a really, really cool game.
Yeah, it was. I think the last podcast. I think you spoke about it quite a bit then, and I wanted to go back to it and play it again. I still got past level 5, which is worrying me. But
yeah, but you're not alone, mate. It's really difficult. I'm rubbish at it. So
yeah, but I thought I was good at top-down races. My entire childhood's just been ruined in one game, which is annoying.
Cool. Okay, Max, how about you? I mean, do you obviously on YouTube you're known as Dreamcast Guy. I'm guessing that's because you have a love for the Dreamcast.
I have quite the extensive collection. Yes.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. To be honest, have you played on the Dreamcast recently at all? Have you picked anything up? Or
I've been playing Pure Solar HD on there just because I'm a big fan of RPGs in general, and I feel like I really like the weird niche stuff, and that is such a bizarre project. They made it originally on the Genesis and then an HD remake on the Dreamcast, and if you put that through VGA, it looks incredible with all the hand-drawn backgrounds. So been playing that and some Sonic Adventure 2. I just every couple of years I decide I gotta sit down and beat a bunch of Sonics again.
Yeah. And what about current gen stuff? Have you played anything recently?
Obviously I review the newest game each week, so I'm stuck in a perpetual cycle of trying to be the most current YouTuber. And so last week I reviewed that new Deus Ex Mankind Divided and was just blown away. Like, wow, if you have a current gen console, highly recommend that. It is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I did watch your review. Didn't you give it 9.5 out of 10?
I gave it a 9.5, yeah. If it wasn't for some animation problems, in my opinion, it'd be a 10 out of 10. It is so good. I've just never played a sneaking game that was so fun to just sneak through a whole room and just spend an hour beating the hell out of people.
I know you made a point about the way that the characters kind of move their arms around as they're speaking, as if they've got something wrong with them.
It's so, people will literally be talking about yeah, I think I'm just gonna go have a bagel, and they'll start lifting their arm, and it's like, are you having a problem? Is this a stroke? Do I get a doctor?
Brilliant. Yeah, well, we'll talk a little bit more about your Dreamcast, YouTube channel very shortly. But just to speak about things I've been playing and things I've picked up. I've picked up a couple of things, mainly digital downloads on the PS4 and on the Vita. I'm probably the only person still playing on the Vita on the planet. So, I'm going to sing its praise. What was that?
I was going to say, I'm right there with you, man. I am a huge Vita fan. So I'm right
Excellent.
there with you.
High five. Yes, I've been playing on the PS4. I've been playing a game called Layers of Fear, which is a kind of a first-person horror game. It's kind of in the vein of PT, but not quite PT. It's more kind of jump scares and paintings melting off walls and that kind of thing. And yeah, my girlfriend saw it as I was playing it, and there was this section where I was walking down this corridor, and this grand piano just kind of suddenly smashed itself through a wall, and she kind of screamed and ran out of the room. I was like, that's that's good enough for me. On the Vita, I've been playing a game called Nidhogg, which is this kind of side-scrolling kind of 2D, almost 8-bit kind of pixel art, fencing game. I don't know if you've seen it or played it. Yeah, that's really, really cool. Game Boy Advance, I've been playing on Rayman 3. Also on the Vita, Rayman Origins. For some reason, Rayman has taken over my life recently, just randomly.
I'm that way with Castlevania right now. I don't remember what caused it. I was at a convention and I found the PSP game Dracula X Chronicles, and now I'm just, for the last 2 weeks, I am hopelessly addicted to everything Castlevania, and I have no idea how the Castlevania bug bit me.
I suppose there could be worse things you could be addicted to. Like with me at the moment, I'm addicted to trying to find out how this guy is who played the Dreamcast barber in the UK adverts. So we don't want to go down that rabbit hole on this particular episode.
I've read the articles. Very good reads. Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. On the Dreamcast, I played a little bit of Bomberman Online. It's a game I'd never played before last week. So yeah, I've been just getting stuck into that because I'm probably going to do a feature on it, and also Demolition Racer, just because I found out that it's got the hidden light gun mode.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, if you unlock the it's called Big Car Hunter. It's hidden in the options menu. You can actually plug a light gun into the Dreamcast and shoot cars as they come towards you on the screen, which is quite cool to find that the Dreamcast has actually got a light gun game that nobody really knows about. So, that's Demolition Racer. Check that one out if you get the chance. Okay, cool. Now we're up to speed on what we've been playing, on the current gen and on the Dreamcast. Let's come to you, Max, let's talk about YouTube. You've been on YouTube since 2008, if I'm correct?
Yeah, I feel like I consider my main, when I started getting really hardcore about it and trying to be a YouTube person, is probably 2013. I've been doing 2 or 3 videos a week since 2013.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel myself, but it's nowhere on the scale of yours. I mean, I've got like 400 subscribers. You've got nearly 40,000. Mm-hmm. And as I said earlier, I am a subscriber because I think your content is fantastic. I love the top 10 lists that you do and the reviews and that kind of thing. So yeah, anyone listening to this, if you just go to YouTube, type in DreamcastGuy, you will find Max. Well worth checking out. But let's talk about how you kind of got started with YouTube. What made you want to, be a YouTuber, as it were?
I guess like most people, in 2008, I stumbled upon an Angry Video Game Nerd video, and I really liked his combination. Like, it was content that was very easy to understand, and it looked so easy to make. It's just a guy sitting down and talking on camera and showing clips of gameplay. And at that time, I was still trying to find the last like 50 Dreamcast games. And so I'd go into like all these different stores every day and be like, oh, you guys got any Dreamcast games? And then I was like, oh, not today, Dreamcast guy. And so when I went home and decided like, oh, I'm going to make a YouTube channel, well, I'll use this crappy nickname. So my first like 3 or 4 videos that exist on the channel are like very Angry Video Game Nerd style, jokey reviews of like Sonic Adventure and stuff.
Yeah, I went back and had a look at your first, like, not to be stalkerish or anything,
but
no. I went back into the archive and actually looked at your earlier videos, because there's a lot of like Dreamcast Let's Plays and that kind of thing. And it's really cool to find out how you actually got the name Dreamcast Guy, because that's pretty interesting. YouTube in general, I consume far too much YouTube content.
Me too.
And I think for some people, it's kind of just like, people who are professional YouTubers, it's kind of like a way of life. And there's all this kind of thing at the moment with like this like YouTube drama and this kind of thing. People who are not really involved in or really give a toss about YouTube, I mean, they probably won't know really what we're talking about. But what's your take on this? Like, I'm going to sue this guy, and there's all this drama over here. And
I don't know if I like it, but I'm very fascinated that it exists. Like, if you consider old media, like TVs and movies, those actors were having those kinds of wars, but they have all these publicists in the way, so we never saw it. This is the first time that we're seeing like the new age of air quotes celebrities, these online celebrities, where they have a problem, they'll make a video be like, hey, Tom, your website sucks and I hate you. And you can make a video being like, hey, Dreamcast guy, how about you go screw yourself or I'll sue you? It's interesting. I don't know if it's positive overall. I don't know if it's negative overall, but it's interesting that we're in a time where people who are literally millionaires can make videos calling each other out.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that, because you've got not just that, for example, if it was me versus you, which obviously it's not.
Yeah, not at all.
We have these like armies of fans to call on each other, and send them to each other's, like, and there's all this doxing and this kind of thing, and it can actually be quite scary, how much power these people do have. I mean, not to single any particular YouTubers out, I mean, I quite like watching the videos that this guy Leafy is Here makes, and then you've got this other guy called Keemstar who makes these counter videos, and they kind of hate each other, and it's just this kind of weird passive aggressive like hate against each other, and then they get their fans to go and dislike each other's videos and things. Have you ever had any negative attention yourself as a YouTuber? I
have been doxxed once. I have received quite a lot of death threats, and of course every YouTuber gets that. I pissed off a couple people, big YouTubers fans here and there, where I did a review that was very, very positive, and a big reviewer did a review that was very, very negative. And I said something on Twitter like, so-and-so seemed to really hate this facet of the game, despite it being so well designed. And they ended up retweeting it, and all their fans down. I mean, I got like 400 down votes on one video, like in a day, like instant, like hate bomb. Wow. That's how it goes. And you'll randomly have people where people like obsessively hate a YouTuber, and that YouTuber ends up being like, hey man, Dreamcast guy's been really shooting up in subscribers, and all of a sudden his army of haters is like, let's go bomb that guy and Photoshop him being horribly killed by clowns. And it happens. I get some horrible hate, but that's such a small percentile of it overall, thankfully.
Yeah, I know there's a story at the moment with a guy, he's called Review Tech USA. He's currently dealing with a like a troll, however you want to call it.
Yeah, a troll stalker, if anything.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention is you did a review of No Man's Sky very recently. I think it was one of the first reviews that was actually on YouTube. And that's reflected in the views that it's had. It's nearly 200,000 views.
Yeah, I think it's 180,000, 181,000 right now. I was very, very fortunate to get a really early copy of that. And so I put like 70 hours into it and did a review before all the major websites because a fan from like Missouri sent me an early copy of it, whereas the actual like company did not send out review copies. So I got to put up a video way before anybody else with a lot of juicy details, which got me a lot of positive and negative feedback. But it was an interesting week.
Yeah, so I was going to say, did you get a lot of negativity just based on, because that game itself seems like a poison chalice. It doesn't matter what you say about it, you will get people hating you for it or, loving you for it.
It was, but it was it was a storm in a bottle. I really, really liked, because obviously it was a huge shit storm and I'm getting death threats and all sorts of stuff, but there was so much conversation. So many people were picking apart my video and picking apart the game and comparing like patch notes that were coming up down the line. And so it was one of those times where it was like, everybody there, it got like 1,000 dislikes, but it got nearly 3,000 likes on that video, which is not a very good ratio of like to dislike overall. But it was interesting to see so much passion because of something I wrote. So I was very, very, very happy with the result of that.
People, go and check out Dreamcast Guy's review of No Man's Sky. That will bring this section of the podcast to a close. And after this little break, we will jump into the main topic of this particular episode of DreamPod, and that is platform games. We're back after this. Okay, welcome back to episode 38 of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. We are joined by YouTube sensation. Is that too strong?
I think it's way too strong.
Okay, YouTuber DreamcastGuy.
Yeah.
And this episode, we're talking about platform games. Now, platform games are one of the earliest genres to ever, exist in video games, basically, and they are. They were a lot more popular in the 16-bit era. Mm-hmm. However, they did transition quite well to the, let's call it the 3D era. We're talking 32 and 64-bit and then beyond. The first, what I would consider to be mainstream, smash of a 3D platform will probably be Mario 64. Yeah. I know ones came before that, like Bug on the Saturn, that kind of thing. And there's other franchises like Spyro, for example. Mm-hmm. But I think Mario 64 was the breakthrough when it came to 3D platformers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Happily, the Dreamcast has a plethora of platformers, 3D, 2D, 2.5D. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about an honourable mention, one we're not too keen on our favourite from the genre on the Dreamcast. Quite similar as we did with the previous themed episodes, like the shmup episode and the fighting and the racing episodes. Ross, who is not here because he's having a barbecue. Obviously, his barbecue is far more important than coming on to the... onto the podcast today and talking about platform games. So if you listen to this, Ross, we are thinking about you. And I hope you get botulism from your from your badly cooked sausages. Anyway, the Dreamcast has, it's got quite a few different platform games, actually. And again, just going back to Ross, he compiled a list for me. So I'm going to run down the list here of all the different platform games on the Dreamcast. Some of these may be a bit contentious, whether or not they're platform games or just 3D adventure games, but bear with me. If you don't agree, send Mike an email.
Cheers. Yeah.
Or just find Max on YouTube and spam his comments.
It's true.
Okay, without further ado, let's go down the list. Okay, so starting with Disney's 102 Dalmatians, Puppies to the Rescue, Disney's Donald Duck Going Quackers, Disney's Buzz Lightyear at Star Command, Disney's Toy Story 2. Then we have Evil Twin, Cyprian's Chronicles, Frogger 2, Swampy's Revenge, Fur Fighters, The Grinch, KO the Kangaroo, Legacy of Kain's Soul Reaver, MDK2, Nappletail. I don't know how you pronounce this. I think it's Arcia in Daydream.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounced that correctly. Otherwise, I'm going to get murdered. Prince of Persia 3D, Rayman 2 The Great Escape, Sonic on the Sega Smash Pack, and the others, I think it's Vector Man and a couple of others. Mm-hmm. We've got Slave Zero, Sonic Adventure 2, Spider-Man, Super Magnetic Neo, Toe Jam and Earl 3, which was unreleased, but you can still actually download it and burn it onto a disc. Tomb Raider Chronicles, Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, and also a couple of indie games as well. We've got Alice's Mum's Rescue, which we mentioned earlier. We've got Gunlord, and one that I'm pretty sure not many people will have played, which is called Polyco Super Jelly Bean Quest, which was a game that was released by Senile Team as an SD image. That's quite a fun little game that you can download for free if you go to Senile Team's website. And that's the list. Is there any I've missed? Are there any glaring errors that I've...
No, that sounds like it rounds it out.
I think there's a couple of Japanese titles, but nothing I can understand.
Yeah. Like I say, there's a couple on that list that many people may not consider to be platform games. Things like Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver.
Slave Zero.
Yeah, Slave Zero. That's more of like a kind of...
Fur Fighters jumps out at me as an odd inclusion, but I understand it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly why we put this list together, and then we can kind of discuss what really should be classed as a platform game. Yeah, there's some of them straddle various genres, so it's very plastic, shall we say, on what can be considered a platform, especially when you enter the 3D realm.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, now we've got the list out of the way. Let's jump in and speak about the ones that we consider decent, not our favourite, but worth an honourable mention. Max, as you are our guest, I'm going to come to you first. What is your honourable mention when it comes to platformers?
My honourable mention is going to be Sonic Adventure 2. It's a game I feel like people come back and harp on a lot. It didn't age the best, but I still think it's one of the most ingenious late Sega console era games. I just like all the different level types and how the game constantly changes up. It's a platformer for every kind of platformer.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of sticks in my mind about Sonic Adventure 2, apart from the obscene product placement from like soap shoes, was that amazing song in the first level where you're sliding down the slopes of San Francisco. I thought it was amazing. I'll probably put that in as a bit of music actually for this episode. But yeah, I quite like Sonic Adventure 2. What I didn't like about it was some of the I didn't like the Rouge levels, where you're flying around, and some of the Knuckles and like Rouge levels where you have to kind of just like float around looking for those emeralds was a bit annoying.
I found those oddly peaceful. I don't know if it was just because I played it when I was like 13 or 14, but I kind of like the idea that some levels were lightning fast, some levels you're breaking into bases as Dr. Robotnik, and then there's some levels you're just floating around being a doof. I liked that.
Yeah, you've actually kind of reminded me. Actually, my least favorite part of that game was not the Knuckles and Rouge levels. It was actually the Tails and Robotnik levels where you're in that kind of mech thing. And I was like, why is he in a mech when he can fly? Yeah. Why don't he just like fly around? That would have been cool.
Well, and they repeat like the same three phrases. He keeps like, "All systems full power." It's like, stop using that soundbite. Use any other soundbite.
What about you, Mike? What are your thoughts on Sonic Adventure 2?
Do you know what? I've never actually played that much Sonic Adventure 2.
Really?
For some bizarre reason, I've never actually managed to get much into it. I love the first one, but the second one, I think it's more the fact that if I get into it, I have this really bad feeling it's going to take ages and ages, and I just haven't got time.
Wasn't this the first time that Shadow was introduced as well?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yes, so we can put a black mark against its name for that.
What? I love Shadow. I even have the Shadow doll. I'm such a cheese ball for Shadow.
It's a great late game, and it really showed off what the Dreamcast could do. It looks amazing still to this day, and does the sheer number of, like as you say, level types and all the little extra stuff, such as like the Chow Gardens and that kind of thing. And Max, have you seen the 3D recreation of Green Hill Zone that you get if you unlock the entire game?
I have. I've seen it in a video. I've never actually been able to, while I 100%ed Sonic Adventure 1, I have not been able to 100% Sonic Adventure 2, so I actually don't have that.
Well, I've not done it either, but there's a little thing called VMU tool that you can get, where you can actually get 100% game saves, transfer them onto a VMU. I'm not condoning cheating, by the way, people listening to this, but I did that just so I could play the Green Hill Zone, and it's brilliant. It's like the best 3D Sonic game you've ever played, or never played in this case.
I actually had the VMU tool. I didn't even think of that. I usually just use that to get the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 saves.
I don't know if it's exactly the same as like the game from the Mega Drive or Genesis version of the first level of Green Hill Zone, but I'm thinking Sega have got all these issues now with Sonic and people saying that all the new 3D Sonic games are rubbish. Why don't they just use that as a blueprint to create a really cool 3D Sonic game? Because that alone is worth playing Sonic Adventure 2 for. It's phenomenally good. Really, really cool. Okay, Sonic Adventure 2. Mike, let's come to you. What is your honourable mention?
I had difficulty picking this because there's a few. I am going to go for Evil Twin. I think mainly for the aesthetics point of view rather than anything else. It's a sort of the closest game on the Dreamcast to a Tim Burton inspired game. Which
that's really well put.
Actually. That's my sort of thing. I think it's got a really good sort of dark but kiddie sort of look, which is great. It plays okay. It's quite. To be honest, I think it's quite. If it wasn't for the sort of visuals, it would be quite a generic platformer.
Yeah. For those people listening, Evil Twin is a PAL exclusive, and it came out quite late, didn't it?
2002, I think, wasn't it?
Was it that late? So. Wow. And that's why it's if you go on eBay and look for Evil Twin, you won't find it for less than maybe £100. So have you played this one, Max?
I have not. It is actually one of the only European exclusives I have not beaten. I haven't even seen gameplay of it. I've seen a couple screenshots on forums, but I've never played it.
It's kind of like it's almost like an Alice in Wonderland style story, isn't it?
It is. It's that sort of fairy tale, dark, twisted fairy tale setting. The controls are a little bit wooden, which I think is a problem for most Dreamcast platformers because of the lack of the second stick. But to an extent as well, I'm sort of glad that we only had, because the PS2 was just chock full of sort of subpar platformers. So I think because we only have a few, which are sort of like non-kiddie ones, Evil Twin sort of stands out on Dreamcast a bit more. If it had been just a PS2 game, I think it would have been forgotten.
Because then it did get a port on the PlayStation 2, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do like Evil Twin. As you say, Mike, I like the aesthetic of it. I like the visuals. I mean, the frame rate stutters at times just because the graphics are so detailed. And everything looks like it's kind of been built with like wood, and everything's really well textured, and just kind of like a patchwork of like really interesting textures in all of the worlds that you... Because it's actually set in like a dream world, isn't it? So the developers' imaginations kind of run wild, and it's a
very twisted sort of. They've let the imagination come out, I think, quite a bit. I think a lot of the early screenshots, because I remember, or I've gone back afterwards as well and seen some of the early sort of screenshots of the game. I think they went for quite a late decision to make it quite dark as well. Darker than usual, because I think of the early screenshots, quite a few of them are a bit more colourful.
Almost like a sort of a Conker's Bad Fur Day type thing, where they kind of switched it up at the end just to try and make it more like appealing to adults.
I think so, yeah. I think I think it's an odd time as well, because 2001, 2002, and it's being made, that transition sort of between Dreamcast and the old style of the PS1 and PS1 and N64 and Dreamcast up to the PS2 and Xbox. I think it was the last sort of... There wasn't many games after that. I can't remember any games like after that, which were able to sort of get very creative. A lot of ones afterwards, the big licenses, they've had to sort of go for a much more adult audience or a kiddie audience, whereas Evil Twin sort of straddles the two.
That's interesting point, yeah. Okay, so we've had Sonic Adventure 2, Evil Twin. I'm going to go for Super Magnetic Neo as my honourable mention. And that's because, even though it looks like a kid's game, it's very much an adult's game because it's so goddamn difficult.
Yeah.
Have either of you guys played this?
I have.
I have that was actually going to be my pick for best platformer. I love that game.
Really? Okay. I mean, it still can be, but so I won't talk too much about it because I'll let you kind of wax lyrical about it if that's your favourite. But basically, you play this little robot. He's got a magnet in his head, and he is able to grab a hold of or repel himself away from opposite polarities of magnet in the world. It's kind of in the same vein as Crash Bandicoot, whereas it's kind of like a 2.5D or what was that game on the Saturn and the PlayStation, the Pandemonium.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, and I just think it's an amazingly good looking game, and the variety in the worlds, the story is just kind of off the wall. You've got this baby in a mech suit, for example, who's controlling this band of pirates. Like, it's just so ridiculous. I won't talk too much about it though, obviously, because I'll let you get to that later on, Max. But Super Magnetic Neo, it's a fantastic game. Also, why are this robot's trousers so tight? Like, you can see every kind of defining curve of his ass cheeks.
Oh yeah,
as he's running along into the screen. It's like they've spent far too long modelling the ass on a robot. It's like,
I suppose robots' pants could actually be that tight, couldn't they? Because if they, nothing to like get trapped,
and they have no pain sensors, so I mean they're not getting clenched.
Cut down fabric costs. Actually, Tom, how you raise it, Tom, it's a very sensible point.
but why give it buttocks? Do you know what I mean? It's
why not?
Why not? Exactly. Why not? We have the power. We have the technology. Asses for everyone.
Exactly.
That's a fair point. Okay. Asses for everyone. Cool. Okay, so honourable mentions we've had Sonic Adventure 2, we've had Evil Twin Cyprian's Chronicles, and we've had Super Magnetic Neo. If you're on the fence as to which platform games you might want to investigate, check all three of those out if you can afford Evil Twin, that is. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are honourable mentions, and when we come back after this very short break, we will dive into our not so favourite mentions. Welcome back to episode 38 of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. We are talking about platform games. We've already discussed our least favourite. Now we're going to talk about some that we're not overly enamoured with. I was going to say rubbish, but to be honest, there aren't actually that many really bad platform games on the Dreamcast, in my opinion anyway. So we're actually kind of going to talk about ones that we, for whatever reasons, don't feel are up to scratch for the Dreamcast, or terrible, if that's the way you want to take it. We'll go in the same order again. We're going to come to you first, Max. Which game leaves a bad taste in your mouth?
I vote Tomb Raider Chronicles. Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 really set a high bar and showed everybody, like, this is what puzzle platformers can be in the 3D era. I felt so much more realistic in an era where Mario 64 was blowing up store shelves. And then all of a sudden this next one comes along that we thought was going to be Tomb Raider 4, but instead it's this sort of prequel, sort of side story with like rehashed levels. It was the first time I ever played a game as a kid that I was like, oh, this is because they ran out of ideas. It's not even that it's a terrible offender. It's not even that it's a broken game. It's just so blah.
Is it Tomb Raider The Last Revelation?
There's a Last Revelation, but there's also Chronicles, right? That's what I have it on my shelf behind me. Isn't that what it's called? Let me check. There's two separate ones on the Dreamcast, right?
Last Revelation came out first, and then Chronicles came out last.
Maybe I'm getting my release order mixed up, because I definitely played Chronicles first, and I remember playing it and just being like, what the hell? Yeah, it's called Tomb Raider 5 in Japan, so that is the 5th installment. But either way, it was the first one I played. I don't know if it's... Obviously, I was a broke kid, so I didn't get games super updated, and everything on the Dreamcast was dirt cheap because I think it died so fast. But I remember buying that and just being like, I think I need a refund.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, my thoughts on Chronicles are kind of, I played it. I'm not a big fan of it. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was actually better than The Last Revelation, which was the one I played first. And I remember when I first got my Dreamcast, The Last Revelation was actually on a demo, I believe. And I played it and I was just like, what is this? This is hardly better than the PlayStation game. So, you've got I'm specifically talking about The Last Revelation here. There's levels in that game where you are walking along and the draw distance is that bad that it's actually building itself in front of you. And I'm just like, is this really what I should be seeing on a Dreamcast? But going back to Chronicles, if that's your choice, then fair enough. I preferred it to Last Revelation, but it's still not a great game, to be honest.
It seemed like they moved all the really talented, passionate level designers to other projects at that point. When I think shortly after that is when Eidos really started having trouble, because they were just like, oh, we don't know what we're doing, oh shit.
What about you, Mike? Have you played Chronicles?
I echo everything that's been said. It just seemed like it was a tired game. It just seemed like they were just producing, doesn't seem like it, they were just making them to make money at that point. The controls are also terrible.
Oh god, yeah.
I have a really, really bad issue with bad controlling games. I can't get through to either Tomb Raiders because they're just so badly controlled. Surely they have enough time to work out a good button mapping on that controller, but no.
And jump distance, you remind me, that's the only game I ever remember where she jumped in such a wide fashion, like her arc was so bad you'd have to step back to jump over gaps. Like, who made this?
Because Chronicles was the last one before the kind of like the first reboot, because after that was it the Angel of Darkness?
That's right,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was meant to be like the gritty reboot on the PS2, wasn't it? But yeah, Chronicles, to be honest, I don't really like any of the Tomb Raider games apart from the new ones.
Oh yeah, the new ones are fantastic.
I think the problem with the Tomb Raider games as well is they were, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will, but they're Windows ports, aren't they? I think they use...
Oh, for the Dreamcast?
I think they use the Windows...
Oh, CE.
I don't think there's many games on the Dreamcast that actually are any good if they use that. you can tell it's the ones that are really bad slowdown and just poor ports.
Running in a straight line gets choppy. It's like, you know where I'm going. How are you not preparing the system?
Yeah.
One of the overarching ththings that I remember from Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, I'm not sure if it's the same in Chronicles, was the texture of Lara Croft's face. And I think we spoke about this on a very early episode of the DreamPod, but what I used to do was I would position Lara Croft so that she was looking kind of straight at the camera, and then her facial expressions would change, but it was basically just as if the game was replacing one expression with another, but it had been drawn in like Microsoft Paint. So like the blinking animation and just her like her mouth as it would change, and I just sit there and stare at it and wait and see what she did next. And it was just kind of fascinating how bad it looked.
It's almost one of those situations where it's like the PlayStation 1 graphics sucked, but they were so bad my imagination filled the gaps. This is just realistic enough that you can be like, this is shite. That's see.
Right, yeah.
Cool, okay. Tomb Raider Chronicles, that's in the bag. Mike, what's your honourable mention?
No, worst game, Tom.
Worst game? Wow.
We've gone past honourable mentions. I was going to pick Tomb Raider, but I'm going to pick Sega Smash Pack. Not because of the games. The games are awesome. All of the Mega Drive Genesis games are fantastic games. Apart from Wrestle War, which isn't a platformer, but was a terrible inclusion. But the sound, the emulation of the sound, it just makes the game unplayable. And I think, we all know now that the emulation on Mega Drive games are so good on the Dreamcast. How they made it so poor is terrible. Vector Man especially. Vector Man is literally unplayable.
Oh yeah.
It's a great game on a Mega Drive, but on Sega Smash Pack, you just can't do it because it's just, I think it's out of sync. It just awful.
You're right. You tap shoot and there's like a 2-frame delay. Like it literally, you will like see like, I didn't press the button. Why is it shooting?
So it's not picked because they're bad games. Picked because of the terrible programming.
I did a feature on Sega Smash Pack a while back because it never got a PAL release.
No.
So a lot of people maybe aren't familiar with what it is. I did an article on it and I recorded some footage of Sonic 1 and it sounded awful. The sound emulation is terrible. It doesn't sound anything like the actual proper version on the Genesis or the Mega Drive of Sonic. It's and even the other games like Streets of Rage sound terrible as well. So I can totally see where you're coming from. Hi, don't mind me. This is just Tom from the future. I thought it might be worth actually giving you a little bit of a demonstration on how bad the sound is in Sega Smash Pack. So this is music from Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis. And this is Sonic the Hedgehog's main music from Green Hill Zone on the Sega Smash Pack on the Dreamcast. There's quite a difference, as you can tell. Anyway, back to the original podcast recording. Wasn't Smash Pack was the game that had the hidden
emulation
README file?
Yeah.
It had the hidden README file on about how to create an emulator for the Dreamcast.
Yeah. It had the name of the hacker group labeled as what the file was, so it was clearly a message to them. Yeah, so that's a fascinating... That disc alone is podcast worthy, its own kind of episode. There's so much that went on regarding that particular saga, really. And then that actually led to the other Sega Mega Drive emulators coming out for the Dreamcast. Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool. Right then. Sega Smash Pack in the bag. Okay, I am going to choose for my... Is it unhonourable or dishonourable? I labelled it as worst, so I'm not sure if I was...
I don't even know if unhonourable is actually a word, but dishonourable, unhonourable, either way, bad game, is The Grinch from Konami. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is twofold. The first one is because it's literally a very bad PlayStation port. And the second one is that it's from Konami. And rather than look at any other games in the Konami back catalogue, they decided to release The Grinch. And it just blows my mind that they didn't, put all that effort into something other than that atrocity. Konami did put out some decent games on the Dreamcast. They put out Deadly Skies, which is quite a decent flight sim. They also did a Track and Field, which is decent. Your hums are not...
I think Konami games on Dreamcast are terrible. I think Track and Field is pretty much a PS1 port. The characters on Track and Field are terrible. Deadly Skies, which I think is Deadly Skies got a different name in America. I'm trying to think.
It's called Air Force Delta.
Air Force Delta. Yeah.
So that's what I thought. I was like, I know I've played it. I've played it hell.
I think that's the only game on Dreamcast from Konami which actually is any good. The rest of them, I don't know what they were doing. They might as well have stayed away like EA. They might have been a better job then.
It also showed what I think one of the biggest things that hurt the Dreamcast's marketing is that all the companies didn't quite know what to put on it, but they wanted to have something to sell on there. And so a lot of companies like Konami just went, okay, find our B team, just have them straight up directly port as cleanly as possible every from the PS1. Even though this is like almost PlayStation 2 quality graphics and processing, just churn this old stuff out again.
Yeah, I mean, because Konami, initially, they had some pretty good stuff like lined up. They had obviously Castlevania, which was cancelled, and there was rumour as well of them putting in an International Superstar Soccer game on the Dreamcast, which would have been phenomenal because I love the PlayStation games. And then just to get things like The Grinch, it's just like, what? I mean, the worst thing about The Grinch is it's a very basic 3D platformer. And it looks terrible, it sounds terrible, but it was released to coincide with the release of the film with Jim Carrey in it, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, or How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or whatever it's called. But it's actually got nothing to do with the film. It's got no voice work from Jim Carrey in it. It's got none of the same artwork or anything. It's actually more based on the books, the cartoon books by Dr. Seuss, rather than the actual film.
Did they even have the license for the film? Isn't that the reason? Didn't they have the license only for the book?
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I don't know. I presume.
It kind of seems like one of those things like that new Ghostbusters game that just came out that was, I mean, just pure garbage. I literally was going to review it and I could not stay awake long enough to beat it. It's the only time that's ever happened to me in my life. I was so boring, I kept falling asleep. And I think it was one of those things where it was like, okay, we need to have something labeled Ghostbusters, or we need something labeled Grinch on store shelves to put across the aisle from the DVD. So just put anything out. And it doesn't matter if the art's right, just do it.
Yeah. Oh, in its defense, I will say that there is some quite good narration and some quite good like these rhyming sort of intros to the levels, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's quite cool. I like that. And there's variation in the stages, but it's not what you expect from the Dreamcast. It's like a rush job. Let's get this PlayStation game and shove it onto the Dreamcast and just hope people buy it. Here you go, something with Grinch written on it because the kids want to watch the film. Right. Terrible. There are other examples of that kind of thing. Just look at all the Disney games, that kind of stuff. But my bad platform game would have to be The Grinch. Anyway, let's move on to the main event. Let's talk about some games we actually like. These are going to be our favourite platform games on the Dreamcast, and we will be back after this short interlude. Welcome back to episode 38 of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. We are joined by YouTuber DreamcastGuy.
Hello.
We're talking about platform. Hello. We're talking about platform games. We've spoken about our honourable mentions. We've spoken about our unhonourable mentions. Now we're going to talk about our favourite examples of platform games on the Dreamcast. There are some pretty good platform games on the Dreamcast, so let's just dive right in and speak about why we love them and what they are. Max, I'm going to come to you first. I think I already know what you're going to say. What's your favourite Dreamcast platform game?
I'm definitely going to have to give it to Super Magnetic Neo purely because of creativity. I love the crazy art style like you mentioned earlier. It's almost like what we thought cartoons would turn into in the CG era. It's super cartoonish in its style. Everybody has big eyes and super goofy outfits, like really clingy pants. But then it's also an ultra difficult puzzle platformer with all sorts of very multi-leveled stuff. Since he's a magnet, he's constantly having to repel or magnetize items and break down doors. I like it. I've never beaten it because it's so impossibly hard, but I've definitely put my hours into it.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very difficult. If you're listening to this and you want to play Super Magnetic Neo, just basically sit yourself down. Don't have anything around you that you can pick up and throw, because you will pick it up and you will throw it. Honestly, believe me. Mike, sorry.
It is very hard. It is. I'll rephrase that. It is a very tough game, Tom. Very tough game.
It's hard, but I like your advice of, anybody who wants to try it, I highly, highly recommend you just sit down and set aside 5 hours in an evening and sit down, shut off your phone and just play that. Because it's one of those games that is very ingenious level design, a lot of creative use of mechanics, but it's so hard. You have to really steep in it and really try and figure stuff out. Because if you messing with Twitter and stuff, you are just going to be like, this game sucks, and shut it off in 30 minutes.
One thing I want to also mention is the way that the world is kind of set out, the hub world. And I find it fascinating how they've done it, in that you move between worlds via these it's almost like a train system where you have to grab hold of these magnetic balls that are flying around this environment. It's just so charming the way they've done it. You've got these different worlds, so you've got different themed worlds, and then Neo himself will grab hold of one of these magnetic balls, and then the camera will kind of zoom out and it'll take you on this 3D almost roller coaster ride around these different environments. And I just thought that was really well done. As well as the fact that you get your own little house that you can find furniture for.
Oh, yeah.
And put things. I thought it was great. Such a fantastic little touch. There's so much to find, but you're never really shown it. Initially, you only find it by exploring the hub world and what happens if I go here or go there. And and the amount of different stages within each world, there's a lot of game there. And also I'll tell you what it reminded me of. You know Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube?
Yeah,
you've got those kind of levels where it's got the sort of the a cappella kind of Mario music, and they're sort of bonus stages. And every now and then one of those kind of pops up, and you have to kind of jump up, up like this kind of tube, but using the different polarities, and there's different moving platforms, and it's an absolute masterclass in just frustration and how to you have to remember to repel, north and south, and how, what sticks to what and what repels it. It's just, I think it's really cool as an educational tool to show kids how to use magnets. Not that you would get a Dreamcast out in a schoolroom and say,
why not? Tom, I think that's a side project for the Junkyard. I think we should go to schools and get Dreamcasts out and explain the world to them.
Well, I've always thought it'd be really, straight up, even when I was young, I thought it'd be a great idea to put typing of the dead in classrooms to teach kids to type. I just thought that was the ultimate thing.
That literally is the greatest idea ever.
Literally.
If Sega had actually conquered the gaming world like they were planning, I think that kind of thing could have happened. The amount of different add-ons and stupidness that Sega were putting out for the Dreamcast, all these school internet connection discs that they put out in Japan.
Yeah.
We could have seen, kids typing, maybe speaking style on keyboards. It's true, actually. Yeah, whenever we do live events and we have Typing of the Dead with the keyboard, people just love it, because it's so unique and novel. But yeah, Super Magnetic Neo, it's a great game, well worth tracking down, and not that expensive either, so worth picking up if you like your mind-bending puzzle games, platform games even. Okay, Super Magnetic Neo. Right, Mike, what's your favourite platform game?
So it's got to be Sonic Adventure.
Right, the first one.
One. It's go on, Tom.
I was going to say a lot of people think it's a bit of a broken mess, me included.
See,
but,
say that, these people are idiots.
Included.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to appeal to the fan base. I think Sonic Adventure is a great.
Just don't mention Shenmue.
I can't say Shenmue. Sonic Adventure, I think, is a gaming. How can I phrase this?
Dog's dinner?
No, it's not dog's dinner. Unless your dog is being fed literally prime cuts of beef, it is not a dog's dinner. Sonic Adventure 1 is a fantastic game. I'll tell you why. Sonic Adventure 1 is a gaming metaphor of the Dreamcast as a whole. Yes, there's a little bit.
All right.
There's little bits where the game's broken. Yeah, okay. No one likes Big the Cat. That fat purple idiot. But when it gets it right, I think it's a fantastic game. I think the controls are, in all seriousness, I think the controls are actually really good. I think people who say they have problems with controls on Sonic Adventure haven't played 99% of the other platformers, because they're terrible compared to it. And Sonic's levels especially, I think are fantastic. I still think they're the best 3D levels.
I will say to you, Mike, that the only good bit of Sonic Adventure 1 is the bit it's the first stage, the first action stage, and that's when you get that killer whale coming up behind you.
It's an iconic moment, and again, that's why I'm saying it's a metaphor of the console for you. See, it grabs you straight away with something, and then after a while, it's a little bit poor, but then you get back, and it's got some great bits in there. Windy Valley? That level was amazing. I love Windy Valley.
I always liked the original Sonic Adventure because it kind of reminded me, it almost felt like an early Metroidvania, an early 3D Metroidvania, how you're getting abilities to go to extra areas, and that opens up new levels instead of just taking you to new parts of the world. You're opening new parts of the existing world. I really, really respected it for that.
Yeah, I think it's a really deep game. I think it's got a lot of stuff in the game. For a first attempt, we've got to bear in mind, it came out in Japan in 1998, didn't it? It's an old game.
They kind of reworked it, didn't they, for the Western release, like ironed loads of bugs out and things.
They did. They ironed out some bugs, and obviously then they released the Western version again back in Japan as Sonic Adventure International.
There's a couple of things that I didn't particularly like about Sonic Adventure. The first one was how Sonic's face moves when he speaks.
You've got to think about faces, haven't you, Tom?
I have, yeah. This is like what you were on about before, Max, when you said in Deus Ex where people move their hands when they're talking about random objects. This is like my version of that. Like, why is your entire face moving when you speak?
He's a hedgehog. He just learned English. You got to cut him some slack, Tom.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
He's a blue hedgehog that runs at great speed, and the problem you have with him is his face. There's a problem there, Tom. There's a problem.
That's a speciesist argument, man.
Doesn't he also have fangs as well? When his mouth opens, he has like sharp.
I don't think so.
He's Sonic Unleashed, isn't it?
Yeah, Sonic Unleashed. He does. I think it was that early era where they just basically had a big white blob inside their mouth. They're like, those are teeth. Just pretend those are teeth.
Also, two of the things that I wasn't too keen on were the first like boss battle when you fight against what's it
Chaos?
Chaos.
Yeah,
Chaos. Yeah. It seemed like broken. It was like, because he's like in this like pool of water, and then it just
you have to wait for him to solidify so you can action strike his head.
Yeah, I know how you do it, but it just when I remember playing it at the time when it was brand new, and I'm thinking this doesn't seem finished. It seems.
I think the biggest
weird.
problem with Sonic Adventure for most people who played it first, like me included, I think it's the fact it wasn't Mario. It wasn't quite as good as Mario 64. But I think for Sega in the 3D world, I think after the disaster of the Saturn's 3D Sonic, I think it was a great game. I think games can sometimes be elevated above their actual mechanics. Dare I say Shenmue again, a game I love.
Yeah.
It's a very similar thing. If you break it down into parts, there's tons of things you can hate about the game, but actually, all combined, how many people bought Dreamcast due to that killer whale scene?
I remember walking into Best Buy and seeing they had a giant like "Welcome to the Future" and it had the Dreamcast symbol, and they had these 4 big TVs. And I remember the left 2 ones was Echo the Dolphin, which, I mean, it looked like I was watching the Discovery Channel. Yeah. And then there was that whale scene, and I was like, I don't know what's going on in the ocean, but I want to be there.
Sonic Adventure. One other thing I wanted to mention is there's a particular stage that I absolutely hated, and that is you're actually kind of in this like jungle bit, and you're on top of the trees, and then you've got to go down into the jungle, and you've got to find this thing, and then go back up on a ladder. Oh God, that gave me nightmares. It was that bad. Yeah, I hated it.
Yeah, but Tom, stop focusing on negative. The positives far outweigh the negatives, yeah?
I do honestly agree that the positives way, way outweigh the negatives. Like,
they do, yeah.
I remember as a kid, one of my favorite things was I beat the entire Sonic campaign first, and so we see the 4 forms of chaos, like Chaos 0, Chaos 4, because the more Chaos Emeralds he eats, he evolves into a bigger monster for the listeners who haven't played it. And then when you play through the other people's campaigns, you'll see that they actually fought the interim forms as well. So like Knuckles runs into him when he's at like 3/4 power and is quite a beast at that point. And so it's cool to be like, the more I played the game, the deeper I got into this Sonic world.
Exactly. I think it's really good. It sort of it unraveled different plots of the story, and they were the way it was all put together. I thought was really good for the time. I know since it's obvious, a lot of games now have these sort of intertwining plots, but I think at the time it was something I hadn't seen a huge amount on consoles, at least.
Also, great intro music.
Yes.
Yeah. Super loud though. That's the only game I can ever remember where like every time it started, I'm like, oh God, turn it down. My mom's gonna yell at me.
Music on Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 from what I've played, fantastic. Mm-hmm. There's one thing again which the gaming world has sadly lost: Sega's fantastic music. I know Sega's still around, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that, no. Excellent. Okay, so we've had a Sonic Adventure and Super Magnetic Neo. We're going to end with my choice for my favourite platform game, and that is Rayman 2.
All right.
Rayman is a game I was familiar with at the time because I didn't have it on the Atari Jaguar. I didn't have it on the Sega Saturn though, and I loved it. And then when this game came out, in fact, I actually first played it on the N64.
Oh, right.
And then only later did I play it on the Dreamcast. But I'm going to sound really like shallow here, but I think one of the main reasons I love it so much is because it looks so good. I was thinking about this earlier on. The Dreamcast era was probably kind of like the last era when you had consoles of like such vastly different capabilities, all occupying the same kind of generation.
Oh yeah.
So you had the PlayStation, you had the N64, and then you had the Dreamcast. But then after that, all the different generations, they've all kind of got similar power. Like, so you've got the Xbox, the PS2, and the GameCube. Where obviously Xbox was the most powerful of the three, but they still had quite similar level playing field. And now, obviously, there's very little to choose between the Xbox One and the PS4. But with the Dreamcast era, that when you saw the Dreamcast version next to the PS1 version and the N64 version, the N64 version looked great, but the Dreamcast version just looked light years ahead of the competition. And it's just like, this is why you buy a Dreamcast, you know. Look at it. It's like a playable cartoon. It's unbelievably good looking. Not just that, you know, it's got a great story, a really cool character. Not cool in a sort of an attitude kind of way, like Sonic was cool, but kind of like in a sort of a weird mute kind of way. That's I don't know. I don't know what it is about Rayman that kind of draws me to him in some way. But I just like the character. Obviously, I've been playing a lot of Rayman in the recent past on the Game Boy Advance and on the Vita. And yeah, this was just kind of like a masterclass on how to take a traditional 2D game and give it a 3D revamp. What do you guys think?
I agree. And on the topic of, it's interesting back then that consoles not only had wildly different graphics powers, but it was also interesting that every console seemed to have its own speciality. Like, it's interesting that all the best RPGs were on PS1. The Nintendo 64 had GoldenEye, but that was like its only major shooter, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, whereas then Dreamcast comes out and all the really hardcore shooters started coming out on that, including almost Half-Life. It's cool that every console used to have an actual like personality, and now they're just all basically the same thing with different controllers.
Every console had its like its own USP kind of thing. This is what you buy this console for. That's what you buy that console for. That kind of thing. With Rayman 2 as well, it's interesting you draw a comparison to the consoles. It also had unique mini games that were specifically for the Dreamcast. It had little VMU games that were obviously just for the Dreamcast. It was always all these extra little details that they said, you know, or they gave to the player to say, look, you've invested in a Dreamcast. This is obviously at the time the Dreamcast was this new thing. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be for the future. We've put everything into this version. The amount of detail in the world. So you're running along. You've got like shafts of sunlight coming through. You've got butterflies kind of floating around, and even little like toadstools kind of like jumping around and like forming little mounds and then like deconstructing again. And it just looks amazing. And like I say, it plays really well too. The controls are perfect, you know, even on that single analog stick, the controls are perfect. Yeah. The camera work is brilliant. There's no, I'm trying to think of any particular moments where I've had problems with like the camera getting stuck behind a wall or something like that. And I can't even think of anything. Right. Even though there's like loads of different modes as well, like different like gameplay styles, as well as the main like platforming levels, and there's other levels where you kind of like racing and things like that. So you've got a lot of variation really in there.
Rayman 2 is also a testament to like simple design done perfectly. Like, it didn't try and add in all sorts of crazy stuff. It was just like, this is just an early 3D platformer done flawlessly. I remember playing it a bunch. I remember playing just the opening levels a bunch just because I liked how crazy and cartoonish the swamp was and stuff. Just being like, I just want to like explore these levels. Screw the objective.
I think the testament to how good the game is, obviously, is when the 3DS launched. They relaunched the game on 3DS, didn't they? It was Rayman 3D.
Oh my, you're right. Wow, yeah, I forgot about that.
I think if I remember rightly, I think it was one of the highest rated games at the time. It hadn't aged at all. The game is fantastic. I don't like Rayman usually, I got to admit, but I do love Rayman 2.
Yeah, they put it out on the PlayStation 2 as well. I think was it Rayman M? Don't know. I think M. Yeah, I think M was for like, I think it stood for multiplayer or something, because you could play like two players at the same time playing through the main game. Wow. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. I'm just going off memory.
Rayman's been on pretty much every console, hasn't it? But I think Rayman 2 until the latest one, which I keep on getting its Origins, isn't it? The latest one.
Legends.
Legends came after Origins.
until those last couple of games, I think it was head and shoulders above the rest of them.
Yeah, they've gone back to the more 2D roots now with as you say, with Legends and Origins, but they're still brilliant games. I love them. I can't praise them enough. And if you've got a Vita or any other console that plays or that hosts the new Rayman games, I would say get them. But obviously, if you've got a Dreamcast or an N64 or even a PlayStation 1, go and get Rayman 2 because it's brilliant. Anyway, so we've kind of come to the end there, a natural conclusion to our choices. It's been interesting, I'll say that. Certainly your opinions on Sonic Adventure, Mike.
Whoa, Tom, let it go, for God's sake. Just, just admit it, it's a great game, okay?
Never.
Well.
That's the hill you're going to die on.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Okay, guys, I think we're going to draw it to a close here. And it just remains for me to say a massive thank you to you, Max, for taking the time out to join us today for this episode. Obviously, you are on YouTube at DreamcastGuy. Is there anything you want to pimp or give out details for that people can find you at?
I just wanted to say a giant thank you to you guys having me on here. I'm a longtime fan of the show. This is so cool being on here. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. This has been a real treat. Thank you for having me on here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. As I say, you can find Max on YouTube. Just type DreamcastGuy into that little search window and you will find him. Mike, you can be found on Twitter, I believe.
Yes, space_turnip.
Yep, space_turnip. I can also be found on Twitter. I'm at Tom Lee C. Max, you're on Twitter as well. Where are you?
I'm just Dreamcast Guy. I'm Dreamcast Guy on everything.
We can also be found as a collective on Twitter at DC Junkyard or the DC Junkyard. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/the Dreamcast Junkyard and groups.com or whatever it is, groups/Dreamcast, whatever it is.
Yeah, you'll find us.
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out, yeah. Also, just want to say a massive thank you once again to all our Patreon supporters. I'm just going to read out the names here at the end of the podcast. We've got Joe Simkowitz, we've got Ben Warwick, Adam Lundgren, Daniel Turner, Ben Lancaster, who is also the creator of the James and Watch indie games. We've got Dave Baldwin, Matthew Smith, Tristan Brown, James Steele, Sean Robinson, Dan Payton, DCGX, Spencer Johnson, who was on our fighting game podcast. We've got Garrett Otto, Chris Unwin, Alex Padilla, Jason Cathers, Brandon Aaron, Alex Hirsch, and John Thompson. Thank you all for your contributions. Even if you find that you can no longer spare the money that you're contributing and you decide that you don't want to patronise us anymore, that's fine. There's no hard feelings. Just, if you want to cancel it, that's fine. What we're thanking you for is what you've given already. So massive thanks for that. Yeah, that'll do for us, I think. One last thing, you can find us on the good old internet at www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. And that will do it for this episode. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you to our guest, Max, a.k.a. Dreamcast Guy, and also to you, Mike, for taking the time out. And let's go and enjoy the rest of our weekend. Woo! Thanks very much.
Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.